Good morning, everybody. Hoping that I can join you. If not, I'm then sharing this recording with you. I am on the way to Chandel, which is just south of Imphal, to visit with our Lamkang friends. And I'm going to be going there with Rex Kular, who's the speaker of Lamkang, who's working with me on creating a dictionary of Lamkang. It's kind of the final process of many years of work. We're checking tones and checking meanings. So this is a really good time for me to be sharing with you some ideas about why we're using Flex and what it means to do, dictionary work. I'm by no means an expert at dictionary work, but that's the whole beauty of using Flex. It helps you create some dictionaries for your community. And so I wanted to share those things with you today, both in what I'm going to say and I think what the rest of the team is going to be sharing with you. So let's get started with this. The whole idea is why use Flex? And I wanted to start with a kind of a review of what we've said so far, so you understand how we got to the point of saying Flex itself. So we are talking about the benefits of archiving your materials about your own language or the language that you are very interested to work on. And here are the different main points. We said it's good for preservation. It's going to be available for future generations in a format that anyone can use. It's going to be something that is backed up by library infrastructure. If I retire, or if you decide you want to go and start a business making pickles or something like that, your materials will still be available to people. And so the work that you've put into it and your community will be able to use, will still be able to use that material, those things that you've collected. It's good for access because it's available when it's needed. It's not hidden somewhere in a hard drive or lost somewhere on a thumb drive, but it's something that can be found through a search engine. And the UNT library and most of our digital library language collections are easily searched. And one of the things that is really nice about Coursel is it's easily searched on even on your phone, using your browser on your phone, putting some sort of search keyword in there, and then you're able to kind of access, say, based on a community member's name, even their records will come up, and somebody can then take a look at those, stream the sound files, look at the audio, look at the text, download the text, and so on. So it's really good for that kind of access. Once you have something in an archive, it's also there then for reuse by the community at large. It's not staying in the department where it's only useful for a few people. And maybe after you graduate and you've got your PhD or your MA and you leave, then it may never be reused again. But when you put something in a publicly accessible archive, then it is reused and it is then contributing to the general knowledge of the speech community as well as the rest of the world. So you're making it useful for further research. It's good for comparative research, and it's good for people who are not even academics and not even from Northeast India to appreciate the Northeast Indian culture. If you hide it, no one will know it's here. If you give access, everyone will know it's here. And you can then spread the word better. And it's good for showing your own product. So if you're working really hard and you're collecting things and you're getting your master's based on those collections, you can publish your thesis, but your thesis is only one aspect of the work you did. It's actually all of the recording and all of the kind of metadata you've created that is part of your work product. And so creating a digital object or a digital collection is going to be something you can cite in your resume as something you've created. And then it also, the whole idea of archiving that when it's in your horizon, it also improves your own data management practices. You won't have one thing on your pen drive, one thing on your hard drive, one thing that you've put in Google Drive, and you don't really know what things are called and you don't know where to find things. If you're thinking in terms of the archiving, you have a neat place where you've named your files, you've moved everything into safer storage, you have actually created a metadata sheet, and you've put all that information in, which is very good for yourself, for your own issue and findability. So archiving is a practice you should start right now. It is a practice that goes from very much from the beginning of file naming all the way to the end of actually sending something to an archive. But it shouldn't seem like a huge different task. It should be something that you do just like doing your writing of your thesis or going to classes or packing your backpack before you go to class. This is part of that whole thing of data management that is a good practice from the very beginning. So that's why archiving. And why we talked about say more is that it allows you to then bring people who don't know anything about your material, whether they're researchers or community members, gives them access to the material so they can understand why you collected it. What is it about? What does it sound like? So future generations will know the meaning of the story or song. And that's the whole point, right? We're collecting these stories and songs because people are losing the information. So in this way, through doing say more, we actually provide the meaning as far as we can do it. There may be some gaps, but at least as much as we know, we can provide the meaning. And that can be done through this translation, phrase by phrase, clause by clause. And it has to be as much as we can do it. We don't want to say it's going to be perfect, but we're going to allow the process to go forward. Like we're going to give one level of analysis now. Hopefully later on, somebody can come and make it even better. Maybe you will do it. Maybe the next generation of students will do it. And when you do say more and you're doing transcription, so say more had two parts to it. Left-hand side was transcription, right-hand side was your translation. When you do the transcription, you suddenly start to see words that you know and some words that you're not really sure of. Like working on the Lamkang right now, we've discovered several words where we're really sure what they mean. This is this kind of basket, this kind of fish, and so on. But sometimes we come across words where we're not exactly sure. This is this kind of pot, maybe, but I need to check and see what it's made of. I'm not really sure. So using say more brings all those words up that you may not actually know. And then also using say more creates that EAF file or a text file that can then be used by other programs. So it's a very useful tool for recognizing what the words are, passing on that information to the next generation, and creating a file format that's useful. Flex is similar in that it allows us to add words to a growing list of what we call a lexicon, or a list of words, and a list of really base words, and also sometimes full words. You can collect longer words, like for example, if I have worked in English, that is work plus ud. So I might collect that whole word, and I might also collect just the fact that it has work in it, the base form, and ud, which is the suffix. So I can make different types of lists, full word lists or lexeme lists, that is just the base word and maybe lists of the suffixes like ud. And Flex allows you to make those kinds of lists. And it allows you to add to those lists in many different ways, including using stories to add from the stories directly. So from say more, we created the transcription and a base translation, and those can then go into Flex, and we can continue the process of analyzing and adding words. Adding words is very important. Understanding the words. Creating dictionaries is not the only way that we're going to be able to pass on the language to other people in the community, but it is a way of helping standardize spelling, helping people have a place to go and look to find out what the meaning of a word is, know what the different dialect varieties are and how those things are pronounced, so that one person can't say, that dialect is like not very good. And they can just say, well, it's a different dialect. It's represented in the dictionary, but it's a variant of possibility. So the dictionary helps you represent the language in a way that both saves and preserves information, but also then shows how people are wanting to do spelling and what the different varieties are that are available. I like this quote about what a dictionary is worth. A dictionary is 1,000 pages of ideas and history. It's a guide to the mind and the world of a people. And there's no book, except perhaps for religious documents, that are themselves guides to the minds and worlds of a people, and the dictionary has a very long shelf life. And surely that must be worth something. And it's written by three famous linguists who have worked on Native American dictionary creation. So a dictionary is worth working on, and it is one very important tool to culture and language preservation. A dictionary that is created simply through a person sitting and thinking of the words that they know will be very limited, because we as humans can't think of all of the words that are in every single story. But if you collect a wide number of stories, a wide number of other genres as well, such as speeches, conversations, you'll add to the dictionary, and then you'll add to this view to the world, world view of your culture. So dictionary making is supported by Flex. And what you should do to make a dictionary is sit down and think with the community, what kind of dictionary do we want? Do we want a dictionary that is for very specifically telling people about different domains of use, like how do you do cooking? Then it'll be all the semantic domain of cooking. All of that practice of cooking will be part of that dictionary. The utensils, the items, the way that things are cooked, the way that they may be eaten, the different kind of festivals that are where different types of cooking are important. All of that kind of words could come in there. If you're interested, not so much in semantic domains, but in analysis of the language, then you'll have more of an analytic dictionary where things will be listed in their base form, and you may have historical information. You may have examples from related languages. So the analytic dictionary is one where a user who is not a linguist may have a hard time finding the words correctly because they may be listed in more abstract forms. And I think Ben is going to be showing some examples of different types of dictionaries. So try to think, is this an analytic dictionary, or is this a dictionary in semantic domain? Or is this a children's dictionary? Maybe it has pictures and it's simplified with one noun per page, for example. Is it a children's dictionary? Or is it a user's dictionary? And so what are the differences between those types of dictionaries? Analytic, semantic domain, children's dictionary, and the user's dictionary. I'd like you to just think about that and talk about it a little bit. Once you've decided what kind of dictionary you want to make for the community or the community needs, you can then use Flex to generate or to derive any of those kinds. That's the great thing about Flex. It allows you to collect all the words in one place, divide them up into the root and the suffixes or prefixes, decide what the abstract base form is, and then decide later on, well, I want to make this available to people who don't know any linguistics. In that case, you don't want to make it so hard for them when they're trying to find a word. You don't want to make it very abstract. And I'm being very abstract right now because you may not understand what I'm talking about because you haven't been thinking about dictionaries the way that I have for the past several weeks. So Ben, when he shows you those examples, one of the questions you can ask is, what are the abstract forms and why are they so difficult? Why would they be difficult for a non-linguist to find? And when do I want to show an abstract form? And when do I want to show a form which is commonly understood or seen? I'm going to show you an example in just a minute. This is what's going to show you what you want to list as your head word or citation form in the dictionary. But we're going to go backwards a little bit and say, when we discussed in the last few classes, using Flex, Seymour, and bringing words into the dictionary, we talked about using stories to bring words into the dictionary. Another thing I'd like you to think about is using we also talked about using existing lists, because we did the sheet swiper. That was an existing list. I'd like you to think about crowdsourcing and using people in the community as sources of information for your dictionary through using something like WhatsApp. So there's another program as well you can look at. It's called We Say. So you can look at that. That's another way of setting it up. If people have a computer, they can then contribute words using We Say. A phone is also a possibility, I believe, but definitely with the computer. WhatsApp is one way. I put up a list of how to use WhatsApp. Here it is. We can have people come together in a meeting hall, say the church meeting hall, and tell them how to use WhatsApp, create a dictionary group. Everyone has hundreds of groups in WhatsApp. Use another group, a dictionary group, and there you can take a picture or tell them to use their phones to take a picture or a video or to type, to text something interesting that they notice in their day-to-day lives, a tree, a plant, a type of fish, and to then say something about that. What is it called? How is it used? And to then share that with the group. That shared item then will be received by somebody who's the data manager of that group. And that data manager can then export that chat and put it in a dedicated drive. This would be something that could be done in a class project, like a Field Methods class project for a particular community. And it can really bring the community into the entire process of developing a dictionary. The export ability in WhatsApp is really good. So when you export a chat, you can export the media files, whether they be audio, video, or even a picture that's taken of a scan of a book, for example, and the text all come together. And you get, this is one that I got from Rex, because he's been sharing with us through WhatsApp. And you can see that the metadata is already there. It tells you the date that it was sent, the time it was sent, who sent it. The image file already has a name, and that file is already attached. And then there are two of them. And then it has our conversation. He says, these are the medicinal herbs that I used last August. And he says how he used them. And then I asked a question, what is it called? And he says it's called chupakak. And then he explains a little bit more about it and how it's used. So all of this gets downloaded in one as one chat, and the person who's doing the data management can then put the sound files or the video files in the folder with the name that is being associated with this item, chupa, which is written right here, chupa kaka, and then this is saved then for later on incorporating into the dictionary. So WhatsApp is something that can be used for also adding words. And I would love for you to discuss that a little bit more. How many of you are in a WhatsApp group for your language? I would like to really know about that. I think that would be something interesting for us to discuss in this group. Is there a WhatsApp group for your language that you're working on? Have you included the community members in that WhatsApp group? Have they created one on their own? And could something like this work in the community? Please discuss if you're able to do so. So WhatsApp is another way of adding words. And once this particular list that I've, the screen that we're on right here is this using an existing word list, which we discussed last time. This is my example from my work in Manipuri. There's an Aribalon or Old Manipuri dictionary. And so I had that scanned and I created a readable scan of it through that scanning process. And my collaborator, Harimon Taunajam, went through and wrote the transliteration in the second column of the Bengali. Then he wrote an explanation of the definition on the right-hand side. And so this becomes my existing word list of the Aribalon, and this can be swooped into a Flex project. After some cleanup will be necessary, somebody will have to go in and type up what has been written here into a spreadsheet, and then it can be moved in. Another thing that Harimon did for me was I took the words from another word list that I had, And I asked him to write up all the things that he could think of, high and low tone, the rising and falling tone, basically, in terms of the roots in Meiteran, in Manipuri, and to try to add some words quickly to my word list. So for example, he had this word lonba, which is a rising tone. And he said, well, for lonba, I can think of 3 words that go with that: to be of the same age, to boil, and to pile up. This works very well for Meiteran. It may not work for all languages because they have a lot of minimal pairs of single syllable words. And here is lonba. It means language, to speak, to wind, to braid, to plait, to interlace, and to embroider. He lists all of these. I thought it was a good example for us because it makes us having to decide, is this word lonba, is it all one word? Would we list it all as one word in the dictionary, or is it several different words? And how do we decide what is going to be one word and several different entries in the dictionary? So in this case, we have the word language and to speak. Those are obviously related. Then we have the word to braid and to plait. Those are obviously related. And to interlace, that seems to also be related. And to wind and to braid or interlace, are those related or separate? And we have to really discuss then with the speaker, are they thought of as the same kinds of actions, but just with different different items? For example, braiding hair or braiding reed together. If somebody is translating into English, for one, they may use interweave or interlace, and for the other, they may use braid or plait, but they really are the same word in the original language. So you have to be careful about the English glossing and not use the English glossing to decide if something is a different word or the same word. You have to ask and talk to the person in detail about what items is the verb used with, and that helps you decide, is it a separate word or is it going to be the same word? Can you think of words in your language where they have many similar meanings, but not exactly the same meaning because you're dealing with different items? Maybe for the same thing, like braiding hair versus braiding or interweaving bamboo or reed. Is it the same word, different words, or and would you list them separately or differently? So I put them here just for example, this is the example that we just discussed here. Embroider actually turns out to be used differently with not fancy language or something, but it is really doing embroidery or stitching. And it might have something to do with interlacing because you're taking the thread and moving it in and out. So it's a decision that has to be made. And a lot of times it comes down to a discussion with speakers that they are the ones who are going to have to go and find the word in the dictionary. And if they're looking in a reverse dictionary, that is, in this case, it is Manipuri to English, that is going to be from the Manipuri word to the English word, then they'll be looking for lon or lonba. But if they're doing a reverse, they're looking from the English to the Manipuri, and they go to embroider, that they're looking for, how do I say embroider? Then you want to have an entry that says embroider, but in that entry, you could say related to the word for braid or plait. So it really, you have to think about who's going to use that dictionary, how you're going to organize the head words. Yeah, these are homonyms. So these are all words that sound the same, but they mean completely different things, like be the same age or boil or pile one on top of another. These happen to sound the same, happen to be spelled the same, but they're actually completely different. So they will obviously have 3 different entries. Don't be afraid of things like when they sound the same and they have a different meaning. That exists in language. Just because they have, it's just because they have different meanings doesn't mean they always have to also sound different. Sometimes people will say, well, they have different tones. That's why they have different meanings. but that's not necessarily the case, right? They could have exactly the same sound, but the meaning could be, so in English, we have the sound, the word for read, you should read really, or read, for example, this book has been read, or I read every day. The spelling is the same, the sound is different. Maybe Ben and Marty, you can think of some homonyms and bring them up at the end of this so that you can give an example of homonyms. All right. So here is something else that you can do, is creating a spreadsheet with your community. And I've got an example of it right here. Let me just, here's your example. If you have several people working on a project for creating a dictionary, it might be helpful to actually bring everything together in a spreadsheet, existing words through your WhatsApp process, bringing those things to a spreadsheet. So we put this together for the Border workshop we were working on. It's a sample of what a spreadsheet could look like. You have the English gloss, you have the language form, you can say what dialect it comes from, you can have the IPA, which can be inserted as soon as you get a person who's trained to do that. You can have a gloss in English, or you can have a gloss in the same language, a synonym, and a description is very important, like an extended description. This verb is used for this verb, this noun is used, this is what the noun looks like. Don't just say a bird, don't just say to jump, but explain what kind of jumping. Is it like a child jumping? Is it like a bird that's hopping on one foot? We need a description of what that is. Put a part of speech in here, give a sample sentence with a gloss. Say where you got it from. Is it from your WhatsApp? Is it from We Say? Is it from your Flex? Where did it come from? And any kind of additional questions that you might have. And then the link, the photo and the video, the name of the file and where it might be found. And then finally, how certain are you of the actual gloss that you've got? So this would be the spreadsheet. Okay. And then in doing that, you might get thousands of words in your spreadsheet because you're adding words to it constantly, especially for the teachers here. If you are adding words this year for, say, ao, naga, and you add it this year, then next year you have a different batch of students and they add words, and so on. In 5 years, you could have a very long list of these words, and you could be rechecking the words that are already there and improving on the IPA. If you don't do it this way, then either through the spreadsheet or having the spreadsheet moved into Flex, then you're really kind of reinventing the wheel every year. As your Flex gets more powerful in the number of words that it knows, the faster and easier you can gloss more and more text. So really adding to your word list is very, very useful. And so this is one way of adding to the word list. This use of the spreadsheet is one way, especially if you're going to be doing it through WhatsApp, crowdsourcing. So it can all come in here. You can standardize the spelling. You can sit together and check on if the IPA looks accurate, and then you can move it into the Flex, because many people on your Flex project will cause some disruption. Fewer people on the Flex project, more people on the spreadsheet. If you're looking at big teams, if you're looking at individual teams, like 2 or 3 people, then they can all be working on the Flex project. If you have 20 or 30 people or generations of people, then that becomes a little bit more complicated. And so the spreadsheet may be a good intermediate link for that. When you're working in the Flex on a spreadsheet, whenever you can, try to fill in and clear out the columns rather than trying to go sideways. So say after the end of the year, your class has picked 60 words and added them here. Then going through the 60 words for part of speech first and adding all of those would be very helpful. Going through and checking that the sentences are all there would be helpful. What is the source? So go column by column. And this is for the checking aspect of it. When you're checking, try to do it column by column rather than going row by row. It just apparently just goes much faster. People say, who have experience, they're saying here that it can go 100 to even 1,000 times faster when you're going column by column to check rather than row by row. So that's a strategy that they've given. And this strategy comes directly from the Flex help file for lexicography. So if you go to Flex and you go on the help menu, there's some tools there, and one of them is a tool for lexicography. And it is very, very detailed. And so those of you who are more advanced should be able to go in and read some of those. I'm almost finished here. I want to just talk to you about the citation form. When you're collecting words, people will give them to you in many different forms. They'll mostly give you full words that they can recognize. And that full word might have tense or aspect. It might have person marking. And what you want to do is decide what is the way in which the people who are going to use the dictionary will look for that word. Will they look for it in a base form? Like in this case, I've given you two examples. One is a stative verb. Sorry, that should be sour, dour. And the other one is an active verb like push. And for the active verb like push, yes, you could say duel. People might look for that, but they might also be more likely to look for something like I push or pushing, like kadul. So it might take a little bit of a workshop of just trial with people who are not experts to see. Okay, now everybody look for this word and see what is their information seeking behavior when using that dictionary. What are they looking for? If it's online, they can just type the word push and it'll bring up all the options. But if it's a good online dictionary, it'll bring up a lot of options. If it's going to be some online things don't work when you put in, if I put kadul in, it might not show me the word. I might have to put exactly dul and otherwise I won't find it. So on paper also, what is it that people are looking for? Will they look for kadul with the K, which means I push, or will they know to look under the D? So we need to think about that when we're thinking what the head word is going to be, or the main entry in our dictionary is going to be. Sour, for example, when people are looking at word lists, they often don't recognize some words. They say, no, that's not a word in our language. It has to be ka, dur. And so that's another thing. It's like, what do people recognize as the word in their language? And those decisions have to come into a user's dictionary. If you're doing an analytic dictionary, then using the base form as your head word would be perhaps okay. So I'll just end here by saying that using Flex is a way of expanding the number of words that you add to a database. It allows you to collect stories, put those stories in a baseline, and use the words in that baseline to expand your dictionary. The dictionary itself is a tool for culture and maintenance and for standardization of spelling. Standardization of spelling is a great way of getting people to write more, and that is a good language maintenance and preservation activity, writing and reading. So dictionary creation is a very important part of language maintenance. And Flex is right at the center of it. So I will summarize in 2 seconds, and then I will say goodbye for now. So by using Flex, you're able to add words on their own. You're able to incorporate things from a spreadsheet, that were brought in through WeSay or WhatsApp. You're able to generate different types of dictionaries because all of the information is there and you can extract it the way that you want it. And you're able to include a lot of stories and the words from the stories, but you're also able to extract the stories themselves and use those stories for creating textbooks, storybooks, and so on. So learning to use Flex is very useful, regardless of whether you're a linguist or you're a folklorist or you're a cultural specialist, like somebody who works on dance or or other cultural activities, because there also you have specialized vocabulary and you can build those tools of vocabulary lists for those specialized activities as well. So I hope that this was helpful, and I wish I could translate it into many different languages in a way that could be highly accessible. So, but please let me know if you have questions. Thank you very much. Bye.